Welcome, viewers. In our studio today, we have Mustafa Dabo, an investigative journalist of Malagan. Mustafa, welcome to the Chronicle.
Glad to be here.
Well, I must start by congratulating you for a well-written article, a well-documented and well-researched document, a story about these investors who come to the Gambia. Make sure they have acquaintances at the State House and at the top level of the state and get access to some undue privileges. How did you come to choose that topic?
So actually, Malagan, I like to say that, congratulations should go to a lot of people because a lot of ideas and a lot of minds go into every work I do. But how we come to choose this particular topic was we were actually looking into the diplomatic passport. There was a leakage. There was a leak that we had from a number of people about the diplomatic passports. So a friend of mine suggested, but these names that we have, it's too much. Okay, we can't do a whole story on all the diplomatic passports. I said, but okay, let's begin a research. So this was September 2019. So we began the research that time, September 2019. So we were doing it and I was reporting to the supervisor because Malagan has an editor, even though it's a behind the scene person.
Great.
So whenever I have an idea, whenever I have a story, whenever I have a new break into a new area of that investigation, I report to the supervisor. But I realized that the person was not keen on the passport because a part of the passport is in front of the court. So we are restricted in how much we could report on the passport. Then while I was in the research, then he told me, why don't we focus on the investors? So I began to focus the investigation now into that area. So I narrow it down to the investors, But as I dig into their digital footprints, I find their activities suspicious, visit their websites, be in touch with them via WhatsApp and things like that. And I also solicit help from outside, from a number of colleagues to do some background research. Investigative journalism, usually it will come as some one-man job, but it's usually a lot of people in the background, yes.
Yeah, and investors, Gambians can bear you witness that at some point between 2017 up to when the Korole issue came about, you will always have investors entering the State House. So how can a driver like Mansa Sumare become an entry door to these investors, to the point of being able to push, establish contacts, kind of a middleman?
So what happened was that Mansa was a driver at the time at State House. But these people actually had they had a colleague, Reni Saj, who was in the country. Reni was here as far back as 2016 with his mother. And then he registered a number of companies. Of course, these companies are not really doing any kind of a business activity. Now, Reni was here, and from what I know, Reni has a relationship with Henry Gomez and also get to know some few people, including the nephew of the president, Ahmad Sane, and then also Mansa. But Mansa told me there is a very limited relationship. In other words, he only got to meet him after the investors came here in 2009 and they met them at Cocoa Ocean. So because they came, they went to Cocoa Ocean, but they had a prior contact with the State House through the office of the Secretary General. So you've seen the letter that the Secretary General wrote back to them to invite them into the country through one of their staff who is currently working at, I think, OP in an office relating to investment, a policy or investment. Because I even have a contact with that person to tell him that you wrote this later, sort of rationale behind it. He refused to speak about it. He only told me, look, go to the former the Secretary General who could explain. I only wrote the letter on behalf of the Secretary General. So, but you could see at any point of the way, you see that people who are supposed to be in charge of the running of the affairs of the states have abdicated. So if that happens, there remains a vacuum. And when there is a vacuum, anybody can feel it. You can, I can, the driver can, the protocol officer can, anybody can feel it. But the whole point is a vacuum.
Is it that the people at State House still believe that it's like the Jammeh era where a driver can cost you your position, which is the reason why they refrain from acting their duties as statesmen?
Let's look at it from this point of view. Naturally, when an investor comes into this country, whether he has a tie with the driver, and I doubt if they have any significant ties with Mansa. I think that the ties goes deeper than that, since they had established already prior contacts with the presidency. I think that the whole point is that the institutions that are supposed to be in charge of investment were not involved. GAIPA, Public-Private Partnership, PPP Department of the Ministry of Finance, and then the ministries that were also supposed to be in charge of the area of investment were also not involved. Remember when these people came here in 2009, at the meeting table there was no agriculture minister or health minister. This was just a meeting between Henry Gomez, the president, and some of the aides. And so this was not particular. Whatever happened in there, they know, we don't. And it's curious because part of the stories I read about these people is that part of their activities is that they also do sponsor political candidates out of their activities, sometimes in collusion with those political candidates. But of course, as a journalist, when you don't have evidence, you shut your mouth. I don't have evidence to suggest they have given some kind of money to the president. So I do not go near suggesting that. What I do know is that it's the process that is flawed. It's the institutions that are supposed to be in charge of investment that are not part of it. That is why no one is vetted. Anybody as long as you're fair-colored can just walk through the door and see the president and say, I'm an investor.
That would have been the other question, because the State House being what it is, the top office, the highest office of the land, normally there should have been a system to vet these people, and the intelligence community also can come in. You remember the NIA asked you and I to be vetted before we got access to the State House.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't something like that happen with these investors?
Absolutely. So you see, the problem is that this is a massive failure of state, of intelligence community, and of state. All the state institutions. Let me give you an example. When the Queen of England was, when the Prince Charles, I think, of England was coming to the Gambia.
I covered it for the BBC.
Yeah, they had, part of their press kits, they are told journalists that no one could take a selfie, like you go and take a selfie with the guy. You know, and I was thinking for myself, this has to be because when you take a picture with that guy, you can use that picture to say, oh, yeah, I'm a friend to the royal family, and use it in a certain light, which may not be favorable, which may put the identity or the integrity of that family into disrepute. So something of that sort. Now, anybody who has got to have access to the president and the presidency Never mind who the person Barrow. Never mind. Barrow is an individual, but he is the president, and the president is the premier symbol of our republic. It's like the national anthem. It's like our flag. Whoever burns our flag endorses the wrath of this country. Whoever has access to the most kept, the most secured building in this country is supposed to be someone with integrity, and that is why any person who is supposed to have access to State House should be vetted. But to have clean seat.
I think that people
of criminal record.
People raise alarm when, if you remember, the issue came about Romanov Empire.
Yeah.
The Secretary General was mentioned, then Fadera, who was later then young to the United States of America. All Gambians thought that lessons were learned because people were talking about the president staying away from these so-called investors and redirecting them to the Department of Ministry of Trade or GAIPA.
In fact, if you had put GAIPA, GCCI, and public-private partnership in charge of this kind of role, you would have saved the president a great deal. Because what is going to happen is that GAIPA has a mechanism to vet investors. They do. And when you go to PPP, public-private partnership, for an investor like this, you will submit what is called an unsolicited proposal. Because the government does not solicit your investment in this area. You're the one who come and you said you have an idea, you have the financial muscle, you just want the land, you want to invest. So it's not solicited proposal. When you take it to them, for some of the basic things, because I've been there and I've spoke to the guy Fatih in charge. If you go there, one of the things they ask you is, who are your partners? What sort of financial backing do you have? Your company, can we have its financial record, its financial statement, right? So you can't avoid scrutiny. They must have your financial statement. They will have your banking issues. They will know which financial institution is behind your investment. They will have all the things. But there is also a reason why investors like this don't go through that kind of system. They rely on greedy politicians, give them some cheap change, and have direct access, and direct access to the most important office in the country.
In that case, how do you rate, or how do you call, how do you see the so-called presidential advisors who are normally supposed to advise the president, but in your story, it appears that you give them just a mobile phone and some cash, and there you are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I think that there is a problem. And the problem is that in this country, people don't respect their job. You see, the president needs to know that you see, what he is in charge of, it's the Gambia. And the Gambia is a joint investment for everybody. Everybody has a $1 and we've come together and form a company, and that company is called the Gambia. He is in charge of that. It's his responsibility to protect and defend the integrity of that office. It's like we've given him our national flag. It's his responsibility to keep it. You see? But the Gambians also need to understand that it's a collective responsibility to make sure that we make sure that the government does the right thing. In relation to those advisors, whether the government is going to hire advisors, you need to hire the people who can do the job. But it's also the responsibility of the people, the civil society, the media, the activists, to make sure that the government does those right things. Because for the longest time, what we have found, the system we have found, we are perfecting it. We are not changing it.
That is meaning the corrupt system, the rotten system that we fought against.
Yeah.
Instead of getting rid of it.
Yeah.
We are consolidating it.
Yeah, we are consolidating it. And you see, there is this one American president, I forget the circumstances in which he said it, but it has to do with choosing between a republic and a monarchy. I think he came out of a conference. I think the conference must have been in relation to that. And then the American president, they said, what do we have? A republic or a monarchy? And the president responded, republic if you can keep it.
I think this is an ongoing debate even in America as we speak.
A republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
So it tells you that, you know, keeping a republic requires your participation, my participation, the president's participation, respecting himself and the office. You see, that office ought to be respected. I mean, you know, even in my office, as a journalist, you don't bring any kind of thing. You don't do any kind of thing. Your conduct is supposed to be at a... When my reporter accepts a bribe, even a fair refund, he's going to go home. He's not going to work with me.
And that's the reason why you have rules that are set up, criteria that are designed for somebody to be able to be a candidate.
And institutions are also put in place so that they function. That thing at State House called Office of Investment, what is that? What is Office of Investment?
A duplication of...
That is GAIPA.
Yep.
You have GAIPA, you have GCCI, you have a public-private partnership department. And you call Office of Investment.
That's a bad no.
What does an investor even have to do with the president? You come to the Gambia, you want to invest in NAWEC. How is that my business? Go to NAWEC. Go to GAIPA. Talk to NAWEC. Go to GAIPA. Talk to... If you are lucky, you will see the Minister of Trade.
But Mustafa, don't you think that if the Janneh Commission recommendations were enforced, you wouldn't have been here?
Absolutely. We would not even have been dealing with this, because Janneh commissions, if you had, only God knows how many Gambians read those documents. The amount of work those commissioners made, Janneh Commission, it's because people don't read them. But even the policy recommendations
they made it difficult. They made it difficult for people to read.
Yeah.
Not only they refused to digitalize the report,
yeah,
but it's for sale. And not every Gambian might have the idea to go and buy.
Right now, actually, they've uploaded it. They just did, I think, out of concerns of citizenry. They did it, I think, about a few months ago, I think. Most people were not aware also, because it was just the ministry's website and it's not announced. It's unannounced that it's on the website, but it's on the website except volume 4. I don't know why volume 4 is not there, but maybe they didn't scan that. But the last I checked, volume 4 is not there.
It shouldn't even have been a scanned document.
Absolutely. And I hope that Gambians or civil society can take it upon themselves to organize discussions around Janneh Commission. Forget about Jammeh. Focus on the future. Like, of course, we have to talk about Jammeh. Jammeh is also part of the future. But, you know, focus on the kind of policy changes they recommended. Even in the mining, I would not have done the mining, because Janneh Commission had asked these people to stop the mining and do some environmental impact assessment and see what has been done in the combos, and also work on some restoration of the land that has been destroyed by indiscriminate mining. So a lot of mess in the new Gambia, it's because we forgot to learn from the Janneh Commission. We refuse to learn from the Janneh Commission.
So from your story, in your investigation, you looked into what these so-called investors did in Europe, in Guinea-Bissau. Can you tell us your findings?
So actually, Andy and his team, some of them are in Germany. So it's very complex, because you have Reni at the center. You have Andreas Brandal and his team. You have the smart cars, which is David Meseros and his team. Those are also separate investors. Then you have Manuel Batista and his EXW Capital. Those are also investors. So you have 3 groups of investors all connecting to Reni. You see. So you are moving from you are moving from one investor to another and then to another. So, and then this is the issue. So now these Germans, the German police actually, if you had read a lot of reports that have been done on their activities, actually at some point got fed up because there were a lot of people who are involved in traffic violations. When they get to traffic violations or road accidents and things like that, and unruly behavior. But when the police caught them, they showed diplomatic passports. And they realized this diplomatic passport is from Bissau. Mm. So they started monitoring these people. That is how this whole thing began. And then until investigations, the Monique Prosecutor's Office opened investigation into Andy and his team, you know, and how they accessed the Bissau diplomatic passport. But they even when Andy was coming here and his team, they came with a support letter from Bissau. And Henry Gomez told me, which is not in the story, that of course these people showed him what they have done in Bissau. I said, but what have they shown you? Any tangible thing? He said, but they have a paper to show, a paper which I have seen. It's just some later recommendation. Later,
but that wouldn't have been difficult.
That was saying, in fact, they were paying for the whole expenses of the embassy.
I think this would have been a very easy thing to look into because of recent.
Yeah,
Bocek and the Minister of Interior of Guinea-Bissau, who is in charge of the intelligence and whatsoever, twice came to Banjul and returned. So I think that it wouldn't have been difficult for Henry Gomez or any other official of the Gambia government to verify this and
they do have an embassy in Bissau.
Obviously, yes.
We have an embassy in Bissau. They could simply, if they had any interest whatsoever, they could simply ask the embassy in Bissau. They could even engage the SIS. They
so
have an
external affairs of Henry
division.
Gomez of a simple paper does not hold.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you could even, if they had any sort of, any kind of curiosity to even vet these people, they would have simply called GAIPA or GCCI. Look, we have some people who said the investors, can you look into them? And they began looking into them, and that's the issue. So if you look at all these investors, the ones from Germany, the EXW, if you read, you can go online and Google EXW and look, even go to the Consop website, the Italian financial regulator. You go to their website and there is a column on the website called Watch for Scam. Under that column, EXW is actually listed. It's very transparently listed. Of course, there is some in Italian, but the website is also in English. So you can click English column and go Watch for Scam. It's at the bottom of the website. And you simply, or you go to all of these Ponzipedia websites. Like there are special websites that are focused on looking for Ponzi schemes. They write mostly about, oh, this website is online, but forget about this, it's scam. This is if you go to all these Ponzipedia websites, they talk a lot about EXW Capital and its businesses.
And we have them comfortably seated in the Gambia.
Absolutely. So one of the claims, and if you look at I haven't found similar evidences relating to smart cars. But if you look at even smart cars, you look at a website that, why would someone who wants to invest 200 million euros here need a stamp approval letter from our president? To do what? You want to invest? Come and invest. A stamp approval letter from the president, a collateralized land, and things like that. You are listing what you need from this country. And you see, the issue, the curious thing with that is that it's like what Andy has, an approval letter. You can go to anybody and say, look, I am in very good business with Gambia government. You see, that's the stamp approval letter the president has signed for me. You see. And the president would sign that this guy is doing an investment in the Gambia. And there is no investment.
Unfortunately, to the cost of the Gambian people, because...
And of course, to the Europeans whose pensions are going to go into that scheme.
Exactly. So not only they have diplomatic passports, they go into land grabbing with the blessing of the government, but they even get married to our sisters.
Yes, and that's the part I felt I had never mentioned in this story because it's quite a private issue, and I think that the people in question also understand that it's my job to just mention that, and I think that I hope they understand that it's my job to mention that. But if you look at the passport, which is what is very curious, is that there are 1,175 passports that were issued. Mm-hmm. Take that aside. On that list, only Mario Dessa is on it. You see, the other 5, Andres Brandal and his team, their passport is not on that list.
It's unrecorded anywhere in this
You know
country.
what it's printed on? It's printed on a service passport book. You see, in 2014, Gambia contacted Delarue. It's the British company that prints our money.
Yes.
To print service passport books and diplomatic passport books for the country. And they did. These are the people who does it for us. And part of that books, I cannot say who was keeping them because that matter is before the court, but just some little bit of substance. Those books, about 1,000, close to 2,000 books were missing from the foreign ministry. Close to 3,400 and something were missing
40.
Of service passports were also missing.
Yeah.
Now what's curious is that take the serial numbers, if you have the database from the foreign ministry, of the passports of Andy and others, just the serial numbers, remove the D from there and put the serial numbers in the database. You will realize that those passports printed for Andy and others are part of the missing passport books. Service passports, not even diplomatic passport books. Service passport books that are collected. This is collected and compiled adequately by the Auditor General's office. So you see, those passports you saw were printed on passports that foreign ministry claimed to have lost. Unaccounted, auditors would say unaccounted for. We have not seen them. But those passports were printed on those passports. What's interesting is that because you see, I wrote over 9,000 words story, and the editor took it back to 4,000, a little under 5,000. Mm-hmm. So you see, a lot of things were in the story, but there has to be a back and forth. Editors have a responsibility to ensure that whatever passed through them is published with clarity. Mm-hmm. I have a responsibility to defend my facts and my research. You see, so there has to be a balance. So the editor edited it down so that there is adequate understanding and there is clarity in the narrative. So basically, the integrity of the document I wrote was badly touched by the time the outcome comes.
But what important fact about it is when Jamel left, shortly after, in 2017, we have, in your story, about 271 diplomatic passports. Yeah. And on the borough, you have about 1,175.
Yes, absolutely.
Too much.
And those were issued randomly to people. If you have the database, you will be shocked. I mean, the kind of people on that database, really, diplomats.
Do they have accreditation?
They don't have accreditation. They just have our diplomatic passport. Okay. And this is where it gets funny, because I speak to a number of people, and there is a huge degree of concern. Even auditors mention it. You see, I took a screenshot of the audit conclusion to say, they are saying that these are things that are affecting the integrity of our passport. And the foreign ministry is sitting on it. The audit investigation, they say they do nothing about it. I'll give you an example. During the COVID time, I know that there was a very senior official at the foreign ministry who had suggested that, look, This is COVID. No one is traveling. You don't need a diplomatic passport. You don't need service passports, perhaps. Let's revoke all our passports, publish all the names of our passports, and tell all our partners, including Interpol, that any passport issued within this particular period by the Gambia government is cancelled. If you find anything that's in use, it's illegal. It's being unauthorizedly used. Right? You know what that would do? It would help you to clean up the passports issued between 2017 to 2022. Now, I'll give you an example, which is very disturbing. When the drug case happened, and there was this Banta case, Banta Keita case, yes, someone reached out to me to say, oh, Ms. Dabo, I have heard Banta Keita has a diplomatic passport.
A Gambian diplomatic passport.
And I told him, no, Banta is not in the Foreign Ministry database. I made some contacts to find out if he has a normal Gambian passport, and yes, he has. And then he has a French passport, those two that are known. But you know what's disturbing is that the person who told me could be right, because Gambia government does not even have a database of those passports that were being illegally printed.
So
books were stolen.
Chances are that he can have a passport,
diplomatic passport,
a diplomatic passport that's actually accounted for in the lost book.
Yes.
When the Gambia government does not have it, and they will tell you we don't have it, when actually they don't have it.
When actually they don't have it. How is that dangerous? That is dangerous because it's putting our passports. Because those passports, as far as auditors were concerned, the chances are that they were being sold for cash.
So
you can have those passports printed for terrorists. You can have it printed for drug lords. You can have it printed for Ponzi stars. You can have it printed for all kinds of people. We are facing a significant national security threat. And sadly, in this country, the only national security threat are those who are asking government to fix things. We need to step up. You see, a country needs to start to be serious about things. Like, you have a significant national security threat. Like, all categories of people using your passport. We have a collective interest in making sure this Gambia works. And you see what happens when corruption, endemic corruption, get grips of a country. And the political leaders don't seem to understand this. Even they would lose control. You see, when drug lords and fraudsters, international fraudsters, get control of your country, they start killing people who defy them. That's what they do. That's what they are doing in Colombia. That's what they are doing everywhere. That's what they have done in Bissau.
In general, it begins with their dirty economic activity, deregulating your economy, creating unreasonable inflation, people getting angry, you can't control things, and it goes out of hand. Unfortunately, it's
even if you want to do anything right, they assassinate politicians. That's what they do in countries. So you may enjoy the breadcrumbs for now, the ones that are thrown at you, but not for long. And it's important Gambians understand that there is a collective stake. This is not, you see, there is an American philosopher called John Fowles who wrote this term, wrote about this idea of counter-supporting. You see, when I come to you with a problem about you and about your identity, about your work, I am not opposing you. I'm counter-supporting. I'm telling you about a problem so that you fix it, so that people love you, so that you do your work well. It's counter-supporting. It's not. But when in this country, when you do something that puts someone in a particular light, and because of his own doing, oh, that one is an opposition. Forget it.
Yeah. And it's rather unfortunate that diplomatic passports are seen as a reward for political support, are seen like an avenue to quickly enrich
Absolutely.
a particular set of people,
Absolutely.
a set of people who are very privileged.
Absolutely.
One of the aspects also that appeared in your story is the fact that they create fake companies that are actually registered. The Registrar General mentioned about 240 companies. If you hear that, you say, whoa, GRA would get a lot of money.
A lot of money.
But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Yeah. In fact, that's an interesting thing, and it's an interesting thing because in all the stories I did, I'm not so I remembered working on any company that has paid tax to GRA. You see, you are curious that GRA collects 11 billion a year, and even under COVID, they're still collecting.
You know how they justify it?
Yeah.
I saw this in the press release by IMF some days ago, saying that they agreed to release some funds, 28 million US dollars. Yes, as an extension of the rapid credit facility.
Yes.
IMF is telling them that one thing you should concentrate is to stop this tax exemption, because that's how they mention it.
Yeah.
That's how they mention it to the donors and to other people. That is tax exemption.
And they give tax
exemption. But the truth is that this is not tax exemption, because
no, this one is not tax exemption. This is tax evasion.
This is fraud. Yeah, because this guy, for example, that one of those guys you mentioned has a company that has zero staff.
Yes, no staff. That's a shell company. That's what you call a shell company.
Yeah.
A briefcase company, some call it. So you see, and Gambia is a briefcase company world. All these companies that are being registered, they don't specifically do business. Imagine, think about 240 companies a year. Gambia would have been, everybody would have been employed. Yeah. But those companies don't exist. Now, you see, when this drug came, if you had read the press release of the drug squad, they had listed number of companies that were consignees.
Yes.
If you looked into those companies, it's likelihood that they would have been shell companies. They would have not have any business activity. They wouldn't exist in reality. But they have a legal certificate of existence. Because shell companies are used for money laundering and for drug trafficking, primarily. If, for example, you are going to move a drug of 10,000 kilos, say, for example, and then you just bring the drug container, and the container comes for Mustafa Kedao. Who is Mustafa Kedao? He's a journalist. And people are likely to look into it. How does Mustafa Kedao? He's just a journalist. He's just one guy. What is in this container? Let's check it, right? But when it comes for but it's consigned to a particular company. You expect companies to be doing in business, especially when it's an import and export company. You expect them to be dealing in this and in that. So they use companies, and individuals register companies, and they use those companies to move illegal money, launder it through our financial system. And even if you go to the bank with a stack of cash, you're expected to be doing some business. When you go, I'm a journalist, and I go and save $10,000. Tomorrow I go with $20,000. What am I doing? But if I'm doing business and I say I'm doing import and export, it makes it easy. So money laundering, organized crime, you need a shell company. And that's what makes us a shell world. And there is another problem with making sure. That is why it's important for the new Solicitor General to make sure that that office of the registrar, complete with good staff. I have to tell you that they very good staff. I met a number of their staff, junior ones, people who are just doing some desk research, because I use that office a lot in case I'm doing some company searches. They're energetic, good staff, they want to do the job right. But if they register a company and say Bijilo, there is no street naming, there is nothing, there is no... How do you make sure you go to that person and make sure that the person file annual return, pay tax and stuff? So what needs to happen is three main things. They need to make sure that they work with the councils on identification of streets and locations and places. One, and make sure that those data is available in the registration system. One. Two, they need to synchronize the activities of the Office of the Registrar of Companies to the activities of GRA, so that whoever exists, they make sure is paying tax, and they make sure it's actually someone doing some business. They are required to register companies after 1 year of no activity. They are empowered to do that. They can deregister you. They can deregister company, and they need to be doing that. They need to also make sure, as a matter of seriousness, that every company that is registered is filing an annual return. You need to come and renew your registration. We are losing millions. All these companies that are existing, few of them are renewing their annual registration. And when they come, they pay a fine, they pay 1,000. But guess what? When they refuse, we can charge them thousands of dollars, and the country can make millions out of that. We're not charging them, we're not doing anything. We need to start charging these companies for defaulting to pay an annual return, to file an annual return, and renew their registrations. You know, people need to be serious. The laws are here, and I have faith. Trust me. People think that I'm a very big, I'm a doomsday, you know, kind of a skeptic. Yeah. I don't think Gambia would move. I'm discouraged. I'm always looking for flaws and things. No, but that's not it. I'm also inspired by incredible number of good people in the civil service, in the public service, people who are willing and they want to do the good things, from the police, from the army, from everywhere, from the public side, from the office of the judiciary, from everywhere. But all that these people need is some political support.
Political will. From the decision makers.
Yes, from the political will. And, you know, and that comes from the minister, from ministers, then from the permanent secretary.
Our setup is made in a way that the number one person to show political will and really the intention to force the love of the Gambia and his intention to shake up things, to get them changed, that's the president.
That's the president, yes. And I hope he realizes that
this is not to his
right
service.
Now, when we break this country, it will be said Gambia was broken. And when it did happen, there was a man called President Adama Barrow who was leading it. I hope he understands that. Because you see, for me, I don't do this work because of anyone. And I often hear people say, well, why are you doing this? For me, I'm a journalist because I don't want my mother to die in a car accident because there is a road that is not good and someone who is supposed to put money there stolen it. You see, I don't want my niece to need to have a heart transplant and it's been told that you have to go to Senegal. I can't afford it. She's going to die.
Do you think that the president would have such an idea or such an intention when in this issue, for example, you have somebody claiming to be his nephew and who is deeply involved in rotating between one group to the other?
Well, I hope that I hope Amadou is not involved, as he said. I don't know him, and I don't know so much about him or his potential involvement in anything illegal. But I just hope that president understands that we can't go back to a situation of where you have president and his Alhamdulillah company, and then you have some bunch of soldiers and some bunch of civil servants working for the president. Or someone can just come from outside and then come to not even a public servant, but in fact more influential than public servant in government. I'm not sure he would take us back to that. I hope he takes some advice, and because it's never too late to fix a country, really. And we have a collective stake in fixing this country. You know, they usually think that, oh, people like us who have barely anything in our account are going to be the one to suffer. But no, it's not like that. You see, when there was COVID, I think one thing we all learned, there was a time the country was shut down completely. America shut down its borders. England shut down its borders. It's almost as if a country existed in isolation. You can't go anywhere. In that case, if you have a heart problem as the president, you die.
You would have been in the Gambian hospital.
You are fixed at EFSTH,
yes,
or you are dead. There is no flight to France or to America. And that can happen. America and China, for all we know, can go into an existential war, a war that would annihilate both of them. What happens to us? It's like we have to build a country that can exist on its own. We're not saying, oh, there is no country in the world that has all of it. But we have to begin to build a country that can, at the very least, feed its own people. And you can't get to a level like that without having a government that is not serious, or a civil servants that don't even respect their job. Because when someone comes to a civil serious, you see, I went to Gaipa, and I spoke to some people there. I don't have to tell you who they are, but I spoke to some people there, and of course they look at me in my dreadlocks. But I mean, these are people, dignified people, people who, if they had met an investor, they would make sure that they know who that person is. But you know, one of them I asked, but I mean, you people are not aware this is, and the person said, look, well, I have had a meeting at the office of the, I have had a meeting at the Ministry of Justice, and I met them there. But that's where it ends. They haven't told me anything about their work, and their file is not on my desk. What do you want me to do? If people choose to go to the office of the president, they can. I can't stop them.
It's true. The office of the president centralizes everything.
Yeah.
Task forces, panel of investigations, yeah, investors, everything.
So you know that, you see, when you are a president, this country does not need a hero. It does not. I don't need to be a hero, or you, or anybody. All this country needs is space for everybody to excel, a space for everybody to do what they are asked to do. The armed forces protects the air, land, and sea. The president oversees and makes sure everybody does this job. That's the job of the president. The president is a supervisor. That's why the president does not. It's not the president who goes to work on the roads. The president supervises and makes sure Minister X, you do the director X, you do the. The directors ministers are in charge of directors and everybody under them. The minister the president is the police of the policeman.
In fact, that's the reason why you have normally regular cabinet meetings where we will ask, Mustafa,
are you doing your job?
Are you doing what you did? Last time when you came here, there was this issue. How far have you gone? Well, unfortunately, cabinet meetings even happen.
But even if they do, what was coming? You see, we have to begin. And there is complete inferiority complex in this country when it comes to. Some white man can come from Senegal and say he's an investor. Everyone believes him. Complete level. I went to National Assembly the other time, and I was going to buy food with my money. But the lawmakers were having a breakfast, and usually, this was back in 2017, 2018 or 2019, and I was to walk into that breakfast room to go and buy. I'm derailing your topic, but this is just to show
anecdotal.
Yeah. And I was to walk in that door, and I was with a French journalist, fair, it was a white girl, and then they let her in. And then I got to the door and they said, no, mister, you have to wait until the lawmakers are ready. I said, but this girl who got in is a journalist. We work together. I said, you know, and he made it a joke as if, oh, no, but that's because he's a guest. No, it's not a guest. It's because he's white.
Let's end this thing with journalism, investigative journalism in the country. Some people said it is impossible, thought it was impossible. Here you are bringing up stories, other people also are struggling with their own. How do you see investigative journalism in the Gambia?
I think it's promising. There are a number of journalists who are growing interest in it now. It's new for all of us, and I think it's new for the industry. But there are people who want to help. And it does not require a lot of money. I do my freelance job, and my colleague, me and my colleague, we are all doing our other jobs to survive. This thing, it's a part-time job. So every day, all day, we do this job on the sides. So it's very possible. And since we started in May last year, we published 5 stories. See, you've started in May last year, and you've picked 5 stories. Some of these stories would take a long time, like this one. This one takes the longest time because we started this in September 2019. And we were ready, of course, in December last year we were ready. But like I said, it was sent for editing, and I was also continuing to research online. And I had sent some couple of emails that I was expecting responses to. So, and then it took some time, and the editing also took some considerable number of time because the editor also needed some time to understand the story. Because like I said, what I wrote was huge. But you know, there is progress. There are people who want to do the job now. And of course, you have the Chronicle now, you have it's prioritizing in-depth reporting. You have Malagan, and I have some boys at the Standard also who have a lot of interest now in in-depth reporting, and they've done quite a few. And you know, you know, I watched one story also last year on QTV. You know, about a company, particular company and orphanage, and it was a good story. So you could see that gradually we will get there. Yeah. People also sit there and blame journalists. It's a difficult thing, man. I mean, because it requires a lot of money, and for all we know, what we do, you and I know, most of the times we fund it for ourselves.
Oh, sure.
And they don't know that. They don't know that these people take their own money and make so things work.
And we still have to go against the wave, the 22-year-old wave.
Yes, yes.
That makes a lot of people believe that, you know, investigating, telling stories like this is not good for the country. Then you just said which is not the case.
Those are not the case because, for example, also one of the major problems is access to information. You have a lot of people fighting back. But thankfully also you have a lot of people who are willing to share, so long as they do agree, they do have hope that you are a professional and you're going to make sure that their integrity is protected, the integrity of the document is protected, and also that the information is used wisely, because this is journalism. You don't do this for personal reasons or to settle personal scores or to further a political agenda or to do. You have to do it with absolute
maturity.
Absolute maturity. You have to also understand that what you are doing it for the state. You're doing it for the progress of everybody, and that you need to stand with the downtrodden and stuff. So when people know that, they're inclined to share one or two things with you. As they say, as I said at some point in the interview, it's a republic if we can keep it. And this is one way of trying to keep it. Yes.
For our common good.
Yes.
Like it is said in our national anthem. Mr. Father, we thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And we hope to get much more stories from you and other colleagues.
Inshallah.
To make the Gambia a better place for everybody.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, viewers.